It's been a while, so I thought I'd give you guys some updates on the projects I've been picking away at since my last update. The two most popular I know most people are here for, Metroid 64 and Twisted Metal, so I want to bring you guys up to speed. Before I get into the updates, I've recently set up a Patreon to help fuel the progress of these projects. By joining my Patreon, you'll gain access to exclusive content, including original games like the pilot episode of my original survival horror creation, American Horrifica, and upcoming project access and updates once they become available. As a token of appreciation, your names will be featured in the credits of my future endeavors. If you're as excited as I am about the journey ahead, consider joining my Patreon or contributing via PayPal. On to Twisted Metal. I'm finally able to turn those series of videos into something that's actually fun to play. Getting the car controller to work with a camera system that feels somewhat close to the real thing has been a complete. Getting everything to seamlessly work together in unison is somewhat of a magician's trick. When one thing is off, the entire illusion falls apart. I'm carefully balancing a mesh that animates on top of a hitbox that has to have a camera constantly looking at a fixed position in front, while the car itself has to turn slightly from side to side and rotate so it doesn't feel like a rigid thing that the camera is super glued to. That's basically three different systems working together, and that's just the car itself, not even the weapon system, or the weapons themselves, or the radar, or the pickups, or the pain in the enemies that must fight, flee, or retreat. All of which I finally got working to the extent that it resembles some semblance of the real thing. But now that I believe I have all the hard parts out of the way with the multiple systems and programming, I'm making progress at a pretty steady click, working on getting as many of the vehicles and levels imported that I can. I originally called this project Twisted Metal Anniversary because 3 years ago, my naive thought it could pump out a game by the series' 25th anniversary. I've since renamed the project to simply Twisted Metal 5. It just feels right. I'm excited to play a new Twisted Metal with a classic arcade ladder that lasts about 45 minutes to an hour per playthrough. Shifting gears to Metroid 64. Let's clear the air right away. Metroid 64 is powered by Unity, not an actual Nintendo 64 project. I am merely attempting to aesthetically make this project resemble a Nintendo 64 game. Because last year I had to turn the project inside out for a project that pays, I have since reconstructed where I was at. And then some. I have a third-person Samus controller with fully functional Z-targeting system like Ocarina of Time once again. Also, a much better camera system that seamlessly transitions between an exploratory chase view to an over-the-shoulder combat view, including the control schemes for each situation. The Morph Ball camera needs a bit of work, but that shouldn't be too much a pain in the ass to get going. By the way, there's Morph Ball now complete with bombs, and yes, you can bomb jump with it. It feels similar to the Metroid Prime Morph Ball. As far as controls go, I am sticking with tank-style controls, similar to Mega Man Legends, which I get a lot of comparisons to. But for combat reasons, I feel it's the best choice. If I'm able to, I will try to get true 8-way movement in there as an option. But I found it works in Ocarina of Time so well because that game isn't heavy on the platforming like Metroid is. Precision jumping is more of a priority, especially with much more involved projectile-based combat. I have the health and weapon systems in place, just not the weapons themselves, save for a temporary test missile. Thanks to working on Twisted Metal the last month, I can easily get the typical Metroid roster of ballistics and beams in there. The health now allows for energy tank pickups and deducting health accordingly. I have some basic enemies with behavior setup. You have your staple gamers and scree bats. I also have a mini Kraid throwing spikes at you with their own individual behaviors. I began putting together a beta quest of sorts, just to have fun with when I had the revelation my level design skills would be great for Minecraft, but not Metroid exactly, so I'm going to have to step up my game a bit in that area. I do, however, have access to a lot of other games' levels. As you can see, I'm using Banjo-Kazooie stages for testing purposes. Since I have the door functionality set up, I decided for the sake of having fun, I'm just going to Turkish Star Wars this shit and put together a fun scenario using whatever architecture I can find. Now, let's shine a light on my brainchild, American Horrifica. My tribute to classic survival horror complete with low-res graphics, tank controls, and fixed camera angles. I've had the craving to make a survival horror game since I first touched Unity in 2018, but I didn't want to rehash the same old zombie or supernatural tropes that the genre had done to death. It took years of milling around in my head to figure out a decent scenario. For a couple years, I studied all my favorite horror games and movies, what inspired them, and really thought about how each horror property I enjoyed was reflective of societal fears at the time. All I knew for sure was there had to be some gameplay mechanics I hadn't seen yet and a banging name for it. I came up with the title before anything else, so American Horrifica kinda came to me naturally. It was like Abracadabra or Marilyn Manson, just one of those earworms you hear once and are kind of infected by. Thanks to the world going crazy for the last several years, most people have at least one conspiracy theory they knock around to explain this insanity, so I decided to combine a hodgepodge of them for an original scenario. I'm not going to spoil the overarching plot, but it would explain a lot if the world really did work the way it does in this game. What I wanted the most out of a new survival horror game was for it to never play the same way twice. Not completely random like a roguelike, but different enough you can never plan a solid route through the scenario. I crave playing a game where each time it feels as if it's the first time, never knowing what exactly is in store for you. I was really surprised how polished this came out, with only a month of development time more or less, and in that month I really solidified my style, aesthetics, and techniques for my future projects and cleaning up previous ones. The pilot episode of American Horrifica is available in the description below on itch, although it is kind of flying under the radar with only a couple hundred plays under its belt at the moment. But I am in the process of pitching it to a game company, so please feel free to give it a play and leave it a comment. Before we wrap things up, I want to express my gratitude for your continued support. You've been the driving force behind these projects, and I'm truly humbled by your enthusiasm. If you're as excited as I am about the journey ahead, consider joining my Patreon community or contributing to my PayPal. Your support goes a long way in helping me realize these dreams and ensuring that the creative spark keeps burning bright. Thank you.